Well, welcome, King of Kings Online. I am so glad you're here today. We're in the middle of a collection of talks called The Quest for Life at its Best. And I think this is something every one of us is seeking. And so if you missed the first 3 messages, you can find them on our website, on YouTube. We post the messages there every week. But today's part 4. And I get to preach on one of my favorite texts to preach on, the day that the walls of Jericho fell down and Joshua and all of the Israelites walked into this 500-year-old promise of God into their land for the very first time. It's exciting. So I'm glad you're here. The quest that I think all of us are on is whether or not the words Jesus says in John 10:10b will be a reality for us. Jesus says, I've come that you would have life and have life to the fullest, or life abundantly. And so on this quest, we've been using a map, and if you go on a quest, you need a map. And so it's an acronym, IPATH, and you can see the 5 words on the screen. We've talked about invitation and preparation and action, and today we're landing in that trust word. Come back next week, we close it up with happiness. So how do you experience the life that Jesus wants to give to you? We started it again. You have to be invited into it. And Jesus does this. Like his grace not only gives us eternal life, but it also offers us an opportunity to follow him as a disciple today. And we've said from the beginning that any life outside of God's will or his invitation for you, it will not result in a fulfilled, happy, or best life. You're going to constantly be at odds with this world. You'll probably be reading books about meaning, purpose, and significance until you die. Because this invitation God has for us is where the best life is found. This invitation is followed by preparation. We mentioned that a fulfilling life doesn't happen overnight or in one moment, but it's the result of consistent and long and steady preparation to accomplish that vision that God gives to each one of us. Preparation is followed by action. There are too many dreams, too many goals and visions that God has given to his children, maybe even to you, that we've fallen short because we've simply not taken the steps right in front of us. There's an enemy on our quest. In fact, he's mentioned in John 10:10a. His name is Satan, and he is conniving. And Jesus says he'll do his best to keep us away from this abundant life by trying to steal it from us or kill us or destroy us. And I've seen that one of the tactics that he uses is to continually try to make us think that God is not worthy of our trust, that God is holding out on us for some reason, that his intentions for us aren't pure, or that there's maybe something or there's someone in this world that's the key to the best life. And so today we are faced with, I think, what is the linchpin of the entire quest. And it's this word, trust. Legitimately, do you trust that God is true, that his promises are real, and that he offers the full and abundant life? Or will you allow the enemy to steal, kill, and destroy the best life that God has for you? We've been looking at the story and character of Joshua, this incredible military and political leader in the Old Testament. And so the text we're looking at today, again, is the day that the Israelites fulfilled this 500-year-old promise from God to his people, that they would have the promised land. This is the day the walls of Jericho fall. And so we're going to jump right into Joshua chapter 6, verse 1. It says, now the gates of Jericho, they were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. Jericho, was to some degree, fearful of Israel. They'd heard what God had done to Egypt, to the Red Sea, and now 40 years later to the Jordan River. They were scared. The chapter before it actually said their hearts were melting with fear. And so they bar up the city. Then the Lord said to Joshua, verse 2, see, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men. See, God wants Joshua to have faith and to believe and to actually picture this as reality. The words have given, they represent a prophetic perfect in the Hebrew text. And so that describes a future event or action as having already been accomplished. Victory was assured by the promise of a powerful and faithful God. And so when God speaks over your life, it's like a prophetic perfect. It is as good as done. And some of you just need to hear that word for today. Verse 3, march around the city once with all the armed men, God said to Joshua. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. And on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. When you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout. And then the wall of the city will collapse and the army will go up, everyone straight in. Now, peel back for a moment. Let's pause here. Think about, let's be in the room with Joshua. It's him and God. Remember, Joshua is the main commander of his army, and he's executing his plan of attack on a powerful, fortified city of Jericho. Joshua has had 40 years with the Israelites to plan his attack. And so likely Joshua's thought about how this is going to go down. And like he spent a good amount of time and energy in planning with his team. And then God comes onto the scene and tells Joshua, hey, Joshua, this is the plan. I think it's easy as human beings, like to get ahead of God and to make plans. And then sometimes God comes alongside of us and says, hey, yeah, I mean, nice try, but I got a different way. And so Joshua, right, he's probably feeling confident of a plan that he and his team had spent probably years thinking about. And so he's hearing the news now of a new plan from the mouth of God that honestly sounds like the worst warfare strategy anyone could have come up with. Think about it, like you're on the cusp of something you've been dreaming about for 40 years. You can almost taste it. And God says, all right, Joshua, this is how we're going to take over this powerful and fortified city. Joshy boy, you ready? It's been a long time, right? We're almost there, right? You're excited, yeah? You spent a lot of time strategizing and working on this plan. You're feeling confident now it's happening. But I want you to scrap everything you thought you were going to do. And I want to tell you, here's the new plan. You guys, in order to take over Jericho, you are going to do a week of exercise now. That's how you're going to take the city. You're going to march around the city and you're going to shout. And if you're Joshua, you're like, okay, that's a weird thing to do, but when the walls fall, that's when we'll fight, right? No, Joshua, this battle is won with Fitbits, not fists. This fight will be won with a trumpet blast, not a cannon blast. March and shout. And if you're Joshua, you're like, God, can I just show you what my team came up with? I think we got some good plans. Come on, this is the worst war strategy I've ever heard of. This seems like a senseless act of obedience, honestly. And as humans, if we were to go with this strategy in the first place, we might be okay with it, with this strategy of God, if every time we walked around the city, the wall fell down a seventh of the way, every day we knew we were making progress, that'd be motivation for us to keep going. And so we'll take another lap if another seventh comes down. But that's not what happened. It says for 7 days, nothing moved, not a brick fell, nothing. And history tells us this wall of Jericho is 4 stories high. It's a massive wall. And so it'd be nice if at least 5, 6, 7 feet come off every lap. God, why is this the way in which you're delivering us? And so the question comes, when you hear God's voice and direction in your life, is will you keep walking when it doesn't even seem to be working? And this is the question of faith. Do you trust in God's plans and purposes for your life, even if you think they are ridiculous? And even if you think you have a better way in which to accomplish God's purposes. Verse 6, I feel bad for Joshua. Son of Nun, he called the priests together and said to them, all right, guys, take up the ark of the covenant of the Lord and have 7 priests carry trumpets in front of it. And he ordered the army, advance, march around the city with an armed guard going ahead of the ark of the Lord. So imagine you go out on the first day. You're one of those warriors. You're excited. And so you put it on your little calendar app on your schedule. Take Jericho on Monday. Put a couple hours to do that. You march for an hour. You go home and you come home and, your wife, she knows what your plan is for the day. She says, so honey, how was your day today? Did you take Jericho? And every man knows that when the wife says, how was your day today? It's code for share with me the most intimate details of your soul and then ask me how my day was and prepare to listen for an unlimited amount of time because I want to tell you about how on the way to the grocery store I saw Sarah and Billy. Well, they're not doing so well in their marriage and I don't know how much longer they're going to last and their son's on drugs, so we need to pray for him. So how was your day today? And you think, well, it was interesting. Interesting. What'd you do? Well, I don't know. Today, I think Joshua just wanted us to get a feel for the lay of the land. And so we took a walk today and had some lunch and then I came home. So I think tomorrow we're going to take Jericho. So you put it on your calendar. Tuesday, day 2 comes. You go out, you do your thing. Tuesday, you come home and your wife, so my big, strong warrior, who'd you kill today? Did you bring me a Jericho head? That's kind of a weird thing to ask. But babe, it's weird. I don't know, but we walked again. I guess we really want to be prepared. You know what they say, babe, right? Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. It's just weird. Verse 8, when Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward. So they're doing this. They're blowing the trumpets and the ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests who blew the trumpets and the rear guard followed the ark. And all this time the trumpets were sounding. But Joshua commanded the army, don't give a war cry, don't raise your voices, don't say a word until the day I tell you to shout, then shout. And so he had the ark of the Lord carried around the city, circled it once. Then the army returned to camp and spent the night there. Can you imagine, again, the difficulty of this? Like, this is several 100,000 people marching around the city without a word, not even a whisper. I think the silence may even be a bigger miracle than the walls falling down. They did this, verse 14 says, for 6 days. They would march around and they would remain silent. And that doesn't sound long, but when you're following a leader that looks like he's turned into a lunatic, like 6 days is a long time. And again, a lot of us may not mind walking as long as we know it's working. I just need to know like why I'm going around these walls, and I need to see those walls falling. We might have questions in our life like, why do I continue to pour into my children when they're still so ungrateful? Is it ever going to make a difference? Why if it's not working? And what God is reminding them and telling us today is if I let you in on the first lap, you would think that it was your walking that brought you in. You would think that it was your shout that brought the wall down. So I need you to have the faith to take another lap. Like to keep walking, even if you don't understand the place I'm taking you. Keep serving. Keep being obedient. Keep remaining faithful. Keep trusting in me, who I've called you to be and what I've called you to do. And so the story continues. On the 7th day, they would circle the city 7 times. And then they shouted. And verse 20 says, when the trumpets sounded, the army shouted. And at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, what happened? The wall collapsed. And so everybody charged straight in and they took the city. So Israel, it does not take Jericho because of a superior army. The city collapses into their hands as a gift from the Lord. And so here we have Jericho standing with its wall, its swords, its spears, its javelins, and a reputation accumulated over hundreds of years versus a group of people carrying an ark and a bunch of trumpets. Like, who do you think Vegas would favor? But in spite of the odds, God's people came out victorious. That's exactly what Jericho was. It was a victory. It was a celebration. It wasn't a war. It wasn't fighting. It was a celebration. God gave them the land. All they did was march and shout. And by the way, that's never been a good warfare strategy in the past, and it will never be again unless God is on the side of the ones marching and shouting. Trumpets, their military function was to muster troops, was to stop fighting or to announce victory. And so the Israelites, they were here to celebrate, to announce victory, and to come into the promised land. And victory always comes through God's plan of deliverance, never ours. And so there you have it. The big finale, like they get into the city. They're now in the land. It was quite a move, and God was with them every step of the way. And so what are we reminded of in this story? That God, once again, shows good on his promises. Like his timing may not be what we want. His ways may be very different, but he is someone you can place your full trust in. He's someone who's worthy of placing all of your trust in. For as much as we may not appreciate the ways of God, I think that we could all say that the way of Jesus through the cross wouldn't have been our first choice. God, why did you have to give your one and only son and have him die on a cross? That feels backwards to us. To me, though, this represents the beauty of our God, that he will accomplish his purposes in his own way. And even when it looks like the promises of God may be dead, they never are. Because our God delivers in the most unfathomable, ridiculous ways. And I think the deader the situation looks, the more ridiculous, like the more you know God's going to come through. That's what God did. God turned the cross, this suffering, this torture instrument, this obstacle, into an opportunity to once and for all give us the confidence to trust in him, that no matter what the outside world looks like, I'm good. And so again, the question I have for you is, do you trust in God? Do you trust in Jesus? No matter what is happening out there, what you're seeing, even if everything is pushing against you, can you trust that God is for you? Like Romans 8:31 says, if God is for you, nothing can be against you. And so every week I've given you a challenge, and here's your homework this week, your challenge. I want you to do something. And I would urge you, do something significant that shows you trust in Jesus. Take a leap of trust, a leap of faith. What will you do? Will you talk to someone about Jesus this week and why he's made a difference in your life? Will this be the week that you step into an opportunity to serve that you've been thinking about? Will this be the week that you give towards a cause that you know Jesus is passionate about? Will you take 2 hours out of a day this week and read through an entire gospel in one setting? Will you go through your house and get rid of all the extras and give them to someone who needs them? Will this be the week where you finally decide to adopt or foster a child? You know, you've been talking about it for 2 years. Is this the week? Is this the week where you find an accountability partner that you can talk with every week? Will you talk to your family member who you haven't talked to in years because of that one thing they did? Is this the week where you forgive someone who's hurt you? Is this the week where you enroll in an addiction recovery program? What is it for you? I don't know, but life is too short to not trust in the promises of God. And sometimes God calls you to do things way out of your comfort zone, things that make no sense to the rest of the world. But God's put this idea inside of you. And here's what I would say: try it, do it. And you might say, well, Pastor Zach, you're asking people to do a lot. What if they actually do it? And I would ask, what if they don't? Too many of you, too many of us, like we walk around saying that we trust in Jesus, and yet we're holding back from doing the thing that God puts inside of us because of fear, because of what people will say, because of failing, because of losing some financial security. I don't know what your reasons are, but what I'm saying is we have a God that we can trust in. Trust in Jesus. This is a God who's proven time and time and time and time again that he is someone we can place all our trust in. And so take a leap of faith. Do something that requires trust. And I guarantee you that you will experience God in your life in a powerful way. And that, at the end of the day, is what the best life is all about. A life with God on our side. And so what did you do, and how can we pray for you? We actually have a page on our website, kingofkings.org/quest, that allows you to tell us what you're doing this week, or even submit pictures. And I know we're not doing it in a braggy way, but in a way for us to celebrate the impact and the steps of faith that's happening out there. So I hope you do that this week. And then I hope you join us for finale week next week in the quest for life at its best. God bless you and have a great week. And let's go take leaps of faith for this God of ours that we can place our full trust